Ciao, darlings. Eugenius here, joined by my fellow perfume snob, Christo. Say hello.
Hello.
Another Frederic Malle review today. And we're going to be looking at Bois d'Orage for the French European people, or French lover. Or is it French lover in Europe?
Yeah, which I always found interesting. Because they use the English name in
Bois d'Orage.
Europe and then the French name in North America.
I always fancied the French lover name more for some reason.
I do. I like it. I think it's more evocative.
Yeah. But it has less to do with the perfume than Bois d'Orage.
Yeah, I suppose.
Bois d'Orage means thunderwood, or...
I don't remember. Something like that.
Thunderwood.
It's not as... But that's it. You know, that's the thing, though. North Americans are, ooh, Bois d'Orage. It sounds classy.
Yeah, French. But French lover sounds cool, too.
Yeah. No, I do. I think...
Who doesn't want a French lover?
I think Bois d'Orage looks nicer written down in the bottle, but the name French lover sounds cool. Because, yeah, it gives the image of, you know, your partner, or you are the lover of someone who smells classically French, or
so
whatever.
If we wanted a French lover bottle, we'd have to order it from Europe.
Pretty much, I guess, yeah.
I don't even know what the testers are here. I guess they're Bois d'Orages.
They would be, I'm pretty sure, yeah, because I got a bottle from someone in the U.S., and it was Bois d'Orage.
Alright, so the perfumer, Pierre Bourdon, who's done notably Cool Water and Kuros.
That's interesting. I had no idea until you mentioned that, because I know Bourdon from, obviously Frederic Malle most notably, but
he's done Iris Poudre, which I love, love. Really,
I like it. I don't love it, I'd say, but I do quite like it. But yeah, so I had no idea he did Cool Water or Kuros.
Both massive hits.
Yes,
you know, phenomenally huge. Massive hits.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get a little bit into this. A woody fragrance.
Definitely, definitely
lives up to its name, unlike others.
So, we were mentioning before this that I had a bottle that recently finished, like maybe in the last 6 months or so, and mine was an old, like, matte cap era, and I was smelling this bottle here, which is obviously glossy cap version, and they're really different. Like, they're, you know, noticeably similar but definite differences. And
I know both versions. I know what you're talking about. They do smell different to me as well.
Yeah, mine, like we were saying before, was very watery and wet, like almost like water dripping out of a cracked root in a tree or something.
To me, it reminded me of like damp, swampy water, like iris growing out of a swamp. That's what I remember. Like green swamp water is what I remember. This fragrance is very green.
I can see that, but I got a real emphasis on roots, whether it be vetiver or whether it be tree roots. But I always said I don't think I did an actual review for it ever on my channel. I don't recall, to be honest. If I did, it was years ago. But it always brought to my mind, not quite swamplands, but like walking through a forest after the rain, and there's just all these exposed roots, you know, when it's like early spring and everything's just growing like crazy and everything's wet and damp. That's kind of what it reminded me of.
Absolutely, I got that too. Green, swampy, iris, and angelica. I guess angelica roots.
So you get iris out of this, because that's one thing I never really got from my classic bottle, but I was never really looking for it. Because I think you got this after my bottle was finished, if mine serves
around the same
correctly.
time.
Or you got this around the same time my bottle was running out. But yeah, so we never really sat and tried them together until today. We kind of talked about them here and there, and it was funny because we always said things that we found the same, and then we always found things that were different. But sitting down now, there's a lot of spice in this version.
Absolutely.
A lot that I never got. And I probably even, like, when you said, man, this is so spicy, it's like, you know, never said it, but like, dude gets spice out of, like, everything. You know what I mean? Like, Eugene will find spice in, like, a glass of tap water. And it's just like, he'll say that to me.
What are you trying to say? I'm making shit up?
No. But I think you love, because I think, admittedly, you like spice a lot more than I do. So I think you're looking for it more aggressively.
Okay, I do. I love spices, especially this style of spice.
Yeah.
To me, it's very... I don't know if it's... Man, this reminds me so much of Angeliques Sous la Pluie by Frederic Malle, which is also... It's rooty and spicy and woody.
Okay.
And that's got, you know, cumin and cardamom and maybe some clove. To me, this is a little bit less discernible. I have a harder time, you know, extracting what those spices are.
I get clove. I even maybe get a little bit of cinnamon in this. Maybe.
Possibly, yeah.
Something kind of a barky, spicy feeling.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of wood notes. It's very, you know, it's wood, like cedar, incense.
So yeah, kind of what I was hitting at was when you were saying like there's so much spice in Bois d'Orage. I was like, okay, sure, man. I don't get it. Maybe it's there. But smelling your bottle now, like, wow, like definitely.
Really?
Like, so you were probably thinking that you're like, dude doesn't get. Yeah, exactly. So it's like
amateur.
But in this, I totally get spice. Like and almost as soon as I sprayed it, like before we even started filming, I was like, wow, there's a lot of spice in here.
Yeah.
I've never smelled that before.
There was a time I was kind of confused with Bois d'Orage because I had several different samples. I was like, you know, and I wouldn't go back to them at the same time. It would be like months apart, and I was like, it smells different than I remember it. And, you know, this bottle smells different than this one. And I'm not huge on reformulations. They don't, you know, bother me with a damn. But I was just like, you know, I was a little bit confused because I know the bottle that you had, that version was way more watery.
Yes.
This one is way more woody.
Yes,
and
this is
spicy,
so much
like
dry.
You
Well,
say.
I want to say much drier.
Both versions are excellent. I got no problem with either version.
This version's drier than mine. I'm not going to say it's dry because there's definitely watery, aquatic elements to it, but mine is just like sopping wet roots and grass and, you know, stuff like that.
Sounds actually like disgusting, but, you know,
it does, but it's a kind of thing, you know? Like, well, you know, the whole notion of vetiver to most people think it's, and I don't find Bois d'Orage to be, you know, even in my earlier version, I don't find it to be overly vetiver based. I find it to be more woods and green leaves and rooty. But I know people that call it vetiver based. I don't know if I'd quite go that far, but there's...
Well, it's got that crispness of a green, fresh vetiver.
Yeah, but, you know, the notion of smelling like vetiver, I know a lot of people that, you know, entry level or novices, rookies, whatever, that are just repulsed by the smell of vetiver. I never hated it, but it took me a long time to appreciate it.
I would agree. I did not like vetiver, and I couldn't stomach it early on, but the further I go, the more I'm like, I don't mind. I actually look for a good vetiver sometimes.
I appreciate them now,
appreciate it a lot more.
Yeah.
It's just more, it adds like this gentlemanly touch to the fragrance.
Very classic note that has kind of been, you know, front row center, kind of been revived in the last couple years. You know, I doubt many men's fragrances from the 90s had vetiver that was really front and center, but you go back and, you know, Guerlain vetiver, like iconic classic masculine.
That for me is the gold standard vetiver.
I've always struggled with that, and I know you've always kind of pushed it on me. Or not pushed it on me,
I've struggled with it too, but I always said, like, if I can step outside of my own shoes and rate this and judge it, it's the gold. It's like number one.
Okay, so talk about performance on this, because this is something that we talk about. I think you a little bit more than myself. I'm kind of indifferent in terms of projection and beast mode and stuff. I don't like that because I get kind of insecure. I get self-conscious when I'm at work. We work and have worked in very different environments.
Okay.
Right? So you work somewhere that's really open and very hot and sweaty.
Yeah,
I can roll around things.
Yeah, I can roll around in donkey shit and come to work and nobody's gonna say anything.
Exactly. Whereas if
you work more, you know,
office environment, and I interact with other people very regularly, and I have to worry about complaints, and I have to worry about, you know, colleagues as well as, you know, clients and customers and patrons and stuff like that. So very different environment. So I've always kind of stepped away from super loud, annoying fragrances for that reason. Whereas you've more so, especially in the last couple of years, I've found kind of moved away from it because of the kind of...
I just find them annoying in general. Like,
yeah.
I don't like... I think a loud fragrances take away from the personality of that, the actual perfume, take away from the character. And I do appreciate those more reserved perfumes, as this one is.
Very.
I find this, it's got pretty decent performance in the, you know, for the first hour and a half, 2 hours. Very noticeable, but after that, it really, it sucks like really close to the skin, and it never really completely goes away for me. There are times where I struggle to smell it, but at the end of the day, there's moments where I do get good whiffs of it. So I'm pretty certain that, you know, if somebody comes in really close, they're going to be able to smell my fragrance, even though I'm not able to.
Mm-hmm.
But
can I see your rose and queer for a minute? The bottle.
I'm okay. I'm okay with that. You know, I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, there's definitely a time and a place for that kind of thing, but I've never really, and I like wearing loud stuff, but for me, there's a very, very select time and place. And as well, most of my experience with perfume took place in the tropics, where I'm getting insane humidity all day, every day, and I would have to wear things that are loud and screeching very selectively. I remember wearing MFK's, what is it? Oud. One of the really barnyardy ones. Which one of the two barnyard?
Velvet,
and Cashmere. I can't remember which one. It was one of those two, and I wore it out to meet my friend at an open air pub for drinks, and it was kind of making me sick by the end of the night. And ever since then, I've not been able to do that super loud, beastly kind of thing again. I used to wear Amen famously, like, you know, when it was like 40 degrees and like 90% humidity, and I loved it. But ever since that...
You know, a reformulation for something like that is almost a blessing. Because I much prefer to wear something like this than Frederic Malle Promise, which is like...
I haven't tried it in a while, but I know what you mean. So I should mention, one of the very, 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 very few compliments I've gotten in my life has come from this. And I've told it on my channel a million times, but I don't think I've told it on yours before. So I was at the bank. It was really soon after I moved back to Canada. And I just moved to Hamilton. I was in college, and I was setting up a bank account. And the teller was helping me set up my bank card. So you know, sign all this stuff at the desk, and then they walk over to the ATM with you and, you know, put in your code. You know what I mean? You probably remember that. Probably a long time ago for you or whatever. But anyway, so I was standing at the counter with her, and she's just kind of like filling things in, doing her paperwork, and she's just like, "You smell really good. What are you wearing?" And I was like, I don't know. I just feel a bit pretentious when it's something that most people have never heard of. If it was like Aqua di Gio, I'd just say Aqua di Gio. You know, because everybody knows it. But if I said, you know, oh, it's Bois d'Orage by Frederic Malle, Editions de Parfum Frederic Malle, she's going to go...
But didn't she ask you to write that down for her?
No. She asked me a couple... So what happened? She asked what it was, and I was like, oh, it's like this really exclusive French perfume, trying to sound not pretentious, but still sounding pretentious. And she's like, it smells really nice, and she keeps typing or whatever, and she's like, it smells really... Like, she's already said it twice. Then we're walking to the ATM, so she comes out from behind the counter, or walking out to the ATM to punch in my number. She's like, what is the actual name of it? And I was like, it's called Bois d'Orage by a brand called Frederic Malle. Like, you can get it in Toronto, which, you know, was trying to point her in that direction. She's like, my boyfriend's totally into perfume. I'd really like to introduce him to that. So I know it wasn't like her just randomly hitting on me or whatever. Like, she probably genuinely liked it and wanted to get her boyfriend a bottle. But she asked me 3 times, and I tried to divert it, you know, a couple times. But because I've done that before, people will be like, oh, I like your perfume. What is it? And I'm not going to say because they won't know, and they'll go, oh, yeah. But so she actually made me tell her what the name was. Whether she tracked it down, I doubt it, but she was that impressed by it. And that's one of the few compliments I've ever received. Like, one of maybe half a dozen in my 5 years in Canada, you know what I mean?
Yeah, gorgeous perfume. I've never received any comment on it, but...
So I do find a very... now in the dry down, it is quite dry.
Spicy.
I find it to be almost like a cross-section of cedar.
Yeah.
You know, maybe cedar that's, like, mildly wet. Like, it's still kind of, you know... wet inside just from, like, you know, the roots bringing up water, you know what I mean? It's still like a fresh cross-section of, like, a cedar tree.
Yeah.
With that green ring in the middle still.
How about as far as incense?
You know what? Again, when you said you got tons of incense out of it, I was just like, yeah, sure, man. It's right next to the spice, isn't it? But I can get it now.
Spice rack.
I can get it now, man. Like, there's way more, or at least more obvious incense in this version than in mine.
This guy's full of shit, eh? Is that what you were thinking?
Exactly. It's like, yeah, man, sure, dude.
Yeah,
it's right next to the
We shouldn't discuss perfume anymore.
No, it's just, it's so interesting.
It's not really a frankincense. It's more of a, like, a fresh incense.
Yeah.
Like a wet incense.
A fresh,
it's not that dry,
wafting,
churchy incense.
Yeah. It's really interesting. Like, I totally get it now. Because we are talking about the exact same fragrance, and we were both right. It's just there were different enough that we smelled different things, but close enough that it's still exactly the same bottle, which is really interesting. So now I think you're less crazy than I did before. You know, like 6 months after the fact. I really wish I had, you know, just a little bit of my bottle left so we could do a side-by-side comparison. I do think my bottle had a little bit more depth. I'm going to be honest.
I still have a little bit left from that concentration or formula.
So how I would compare it now, trying this right here now. This guy's got
fucking kidding?
This guy's got a huge fish. Here, stop this. You can record again, right?
Yeah. Fucking guy is fishing back there and called us to take a picture of his 30-pound salmon. And I was like, what the hell is this guy screaming at?
Oh, man.
Anyway.
It was way too funny. But yeah, we went over. The dude's got this, like, 30-pound salmon, and he's like, can you get a picture? This is the biggest one I've ever caught.
Are you fucking kidding? Like, we're reviewing Bois d'Orage, dude.
Like, don't you know? I don't know. I thought it was funny, but I don't know. Whatever.
Man, you got a lot of nerves, eh? Like, you're just so... Somebody's calling you.
Well, to be fair, he probably thought we were just sitting having a coffee, you know? He probably didn't realize we were making a video.
Like, you're just so cool and calm. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what do you want, man? What do you want? Why are you screaming at us?
Anyway, so I was kind of getting into my analogy between my version and your version. So, kind of when you do an art print, what happens is, like, if you make, like, let's say an edition of, like, 1,000 prints, which is kind of a lot, you know, that would be more like a indie artist or whatever. You would, the first print that you stamp, that you lay, is always the best and the most desirable. The 1,000th print you get to is the least defined and the least desirable, because the lines get askew a bit, everything kind of changes, things start moving around. So it goes from, like, super defined lines and edges and corners and, you know, definition, colors, blah, 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 all that, to, you know, the 1,000th one where things are starting to get distorted and less definition, etc., etc. And I'd say that's the kind of the difference. There's still a great print. And I'm not saying yours is the 1,000th and mine's the first, but I'm saying, like, I can see that a lot of the definition has been lost. Like, when I smell mine or when I picture mine in my head, I literally just, I can see the roots growing so clearly in my mind, whereas with this, I see it more like, you know, just like, yeah, maybe that, you know,
generic rootiness.
Yeah, just like a forest rather than the roots protruding from the wet ground kind of thing.
Yeah. Anyway, I definitely put it in, like, the same class or the same family as Vetiver Extraordinaire. and Angeliques Sous le Pluie. There's like this similarity that runs throughout all three of them.
Okay, Sous le Pluie, you got me on that one. I've tried it. I've not tried it as much as Vetiver and obviously Bois d'Orage. So that's kind of weird because I know Angelique and I know it can be kind of a dry, herbally kind of thing sometimes, at least when I'm more familiar with it. But
like all three of them have this green, rooty, spicy cedar that run through through the heart of them. So it's like they almost all sat down together and during the brief and said, let's make these.
I get it.
Like it's almost like they share the same heart, but through a different vision, of course, and then they kind of branch off.
I see. Okay. Yeah. Do you have a bottle of Angelique? You do.
I do.
Yeah.
I love it.
I've only ever had a sample. I don't know much about it. Okay. Awesome. So what else? I think we've kind of covered a majority of it.
Overboard. Yeah.
So, okay, no, one thing I did want to mention specifically, and I actually wore this today specifically because of this review, and I have to say, I think this is Laurel from Comme des Garçons' Monocle series, and they get compared a lot, Bois d'Orage and Laurel.
Yeah.
And
I've never heard this comparison before, but
no,
I can see why.
So I had never heard it until I bought this. And it was totally by chance. My bottle of Bois d'Orage was finishing, and a friend of mine was selling this for what I would consider a pretty good price. And it was coming in the mail, and I think I mentioned to him my bottle of Bois d'Orage was finishing up, and he's like, "Oh, is that why you're grabbing the Laurel?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "Oh, well, they're compared a lot." And I was like, "Really?" So I went, of course, no fail, it's getting compared on Fragrantica, which you got to take with a grain of salt, because there's things I've seen compared by a lot of people, and they're nothing alike. And I don't mean, like, Jeremy's The Office getting compared to Squidward's cologne, what I mean? I mean, like, people actually saying, like, oh, Avignon smells like Amen. I was like, no, it doesn't. It doesn't. So anyway, it finally came, and I sprayed it on. I still had a little bit of Bois d'Orage in my bottle, and it's like, wow, like, it does smell like it. There's definitely differences as well, like, they're completely different houses with completely different perfumers. I think Bois d'Orage does predate Laurel. I could be wrong, but I think it does predate it by a couple years.
I'm not sure.
But I don't think Comme des Garçons are the kind of house that just rip people off and follow trends.
Doesn't seem that way, no.
And I don't think Bois d'Orage was ever a big enough hit where Comme des Garçons like, hey, we need to rip them off.
To copy that.
You know what I mean? So I find the difference with this, though, this has noticeably more pepper. The pepper in this is pretty outrageous. But I think this is a little bit more true to the classic Bois d'Orage that I had than I think this.
This reminds me of, like, mustard seed.
Mustard
some
seed.
kind of curry powder.
I don't know if I've ever smelled mustard seed, like actually smelled real in person.
Like I just see that yellow powdery.
Yellow powdery. Wow. Here, let me see.
It's
Spray
fantastic.
some on your arm. Huh.
Like when you got in the car, I'm like, all right, he's wearing one of two things. He's wearing Bois d'Orage or something from Comme des Garçons. And I couldn't be like very specific about it. I was like, yeah, I've smelled it on him before. I just didn't know the name. Yeah, it's very seedy. I get a lot of, like, I'm not sure if it's mustard seed or curry or...
Interesting. I never would have thought of mustard seed.
It's fantastic, though.
I need to... yeah, okay.
I love it. I love that.
Okay. I see. I can pick that up. I can pick up a kind of curry aspect to it. I don't know what mustard seeds... I don't really know mustard seed, but yeah, sure. But I see a different... I see a similarity between this and my classic Bois d'Orage more, but I still see a little bit of a similarity to your bottle here. This one's very dry. Very, very dry in this dry down.
They're both great. All right, I know you don't like to score fragrances, but if you had to, what would you give Bois d'Orage out of 5?
What? Out of 5? Ha. Bois d'Orage in general, or this bottle in front of us?
It doesn't matter what.
It's so hard, and like out of 5 as well. It's like I would definitely give it a 4 or above. Like, if I was to do it out of 100, I would probably give it, you know, like, somewhere in the 80s.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. 4 and above. And, you know, and that's including the performance and as subtle and,
yeah,
I don't want to say weak, but...
so Bois d'Orage is very, very high on my to rebuy list. I loved it.
It's definitely one I would repurchase
and I was quite, you know, happy that I got this around the same time it was finishing, because they are similar enough, but I still do miss my bottle very, very much. And I would really like to replace it, but there's just so many good malls that I want to get now that I have this. Now, this is only a 50 ml bottle, and I've already put a pretty good dent in it, but I do really like Bois d'Orage still.
What's next on your list from mall? Like, want to buy a list? Is there anything?
Not CUIR, Rose CUIR, that's for sure. Stay tuned to, or I don't know which one comes up first, but Eugene's table thumping video that he did.
Or wait for the 2.5 hour review, is that what you said?
Yeah, wait for the 2.5 hour review of, is it Rose CUIR? Or CUIR Rose?
Rose and CUIR.
Rose and CUIR, yeah, okay. So yeah, wait for the 2.5 hour review of that in 6 months when Eugene says it's 9 out of 10.
I love it. Which is quite possible. It can certainly happen. Anyway.
And there's rose and leather everywhere. You'd have to be an idiot not to smell
orifice. It. Yeah. Anyway, let's kill this.
All right.
We'll talk to you soon.